Does that bottleneck still exist? And how does the cost of established compared to the cost to build a new property? Has much changed? Big problem for affordability. Those that have existing properties, this is really going to underpin the established house prices only increasing further in Perth, putting pressure on that to keep happening, and no relief is in sight as far as demand and supply goes, really looking through to how the building industry is stacking up at the moment.
Welcome to Perth Property Insider, where you will learn how to grow your wealth and improve your life using Perth property. Our show is brought to you by Investors Edge Real Estate, the highly rated and award-winning property management, sales and buyers agency servicing the whole of Perth. Now, here's your host, Jared Mann.
G'day and welcome to another episode of Perth Property Insider. I'm your host, Jared Mann, and nearly 18 months ago, I recorded an episode, it was number 138, on why our building bottleneck is supporting price growth of established properties. So I thought I'd revisit and do a real deep dive into our building industry, looking at does that bottleneck still exist and how does the cost of established compared to the cost to build a new property? Has much changed? I'll be taking a real deeper look into the current state of the building industry and giving you my insights on how this is likely going to be affecting overall prices over the next year. So let's take a look first at the demand side of things and where are we at for population growth? Well, with projections indicating that WA still going to need around 20,000 homes annually to keep up with population growth. The most recent growth stats are showing in the year to March that we had 89,000 population increase to WA, and it was a 3.1% increase and the highest of all the states by percentage terms. So still very popular by all accounts. Migrants, both interstate and overseas, are still coming to us. And of that 89,000 population increase, 65,000 approximately was interstate and overseas migrants. So when we consider about 65,000 new entrants to the state that are going to need a house of some description, if we take one in three of these people, or basically three people living together out of that 65,000, translates through to needing around 22,000 homes just for migrants, let alone those that are looking to rent or buy their first homes and moving out from mum and dad. So the real figure of what we need is probably 25,000 homes a year by all accounts, based on our current population growth. Now, when we look at our actual new home sales and how many actual new homes are selling per month, we started the year pretty strong with increasing sales leading up to around May. But the sales from June onwards have really fallen off and started to, decline, possibly flattening at a new low by the looks of it. Based on current levels, we're selling around 750 a month over the last 4 months. And this is going to be, translate through to around 9,000 home sales. So at 9,000 home sales, if we're needing about 15 to 17,000 actual homes, and then the rest are made up by units, we're still a long way off. 9,000 compared to, 17 odd thousand is probably where we need to be. So nearly half of what we probably need as far as what's getting sold every month. Now, when we look at actual commencements, so the sales is one thing, then they have to prepare the plans, get approvals, and actually commence construction. So it's predicted that there'll be 17,620 commencements for 2024. And this is on the back of some previously strong home sales in the past across 2023. 17,620 odds predicted for 2024 commencements. Keeping in mind, we're probably going to need 25,000 odd a year. So again, falling short by a fair margin there. How does this compare with previous commencements? We had 14,239 in 2023. So it's gone up from 14,000 to 17,000 this year. So an increase over the last year. And they are predicting, well, shall we say hoping, that there'll be a further increase to 21,000 across 2025. So reeling that target of 25,000 in, if they can certainly go from 17,000 to 21,000 to commence next year, that would be a notable step in the right direction. But I guess we'll see it when we believe it. And we're not seeing it in the number of monthly home sales that are actually being sold now to commence next year. So I think it does seem like a bit of a lofty prediction to me. Now, we've covered off the sales, we've covered off the commencements. Now let's look at what's actually under construction. So the number of unfinished homes is near a record high in WA at 22,000 homes that are actually commenced and under construction, unfinished. Of that, there's 17,500 houses and just over 5,000 units, making up the 22,500. When they're actually completed, that will obviously improve supply, but there has been still, ongoing delays, and I guess even half of these can manage to complete over the next year. We're still going to have a shortfall on the number of dwellings that we need. So as you would have seen in the media lately, we've had the latest of our builders going broke with niche living, finally tapping out and not having their builder's license renewed, and those people accessing the home builder's guarantee and being able to at least get some money to finish their homes. But we've also had a series of other big builders that haven't probably hit as much of the media headlines, but we've had 7 or 8 builders in the last few months going into liquidation. Industry experts have said that it's still just the tip of the iceberg. We had Collier Homes, which is a well-established builder since 1959, collapse earlier this year. They only had 7 homes unfinished, but you don't want to be one of those 7, of course. And the failure of these building companies has really been linked to increasing pressures within the constructing sector post-COVID. We've had cost surges. We've had the fixed price contracts where the builders are required to deliver and they miss out on their margin, in many cases having to borrow from Peter to pay Paul to try and finish what they promised to Peter. So I hope you followed that. But another recent company that went under liquidation was Startright Homes, an Osborne Park-based builder specialising in single story, and they had 24 customers with unbuilt homes left as well. And what we've seen post-COVID here now is 110 construction companies in Western Australia that have collapsed, which is just staggering. When the building grants happened and everything, the building industry started firing post-COVID, most of us would have thought it would be a good thing, and no one would have predicted just how difficult these times would have been for the builders. And with 110 less around, there's a lot less choice for consumers, and that same less builders are needing to try and deliver and on even more projects is what we're basically looking at. So certainly not helping confidence in the industry with builders continuing to collapse, and it's not helping us ramp up our numbers of what we're actually completing and delivering. So where has all of that left us with the average cost to build? Recent construction industry research has found that costs are now between $2,300 and $4,450, so $4,450 a square metre to build in Perth. And with a standard house being at the moment, according to the stats, 223.2 square metres, that's going to equate to a typical cost to build between $513,000 and $993,000. So a fair range there, obviously depending on the quality of build, but entry point just for the build component, looking at $513,000. When we look back 2 years ago, when I recorded, around the time of me recording the last episode 18 months ago, we were at $383,000 cost to build versus our $513 cost to build now, so a fairly substantial increase just over that time. As the pandemic began, so just before we went into pandemic, we were at a $312,000 build average cost to build, so it's gone up around $200,000 in the cost to build. And when we look back to 2001, it was around 125,000. So hasn't it come up a lot since then? Now, what does this mean for the typical sort of house sizes? For building a 3-bedroom house that's 175 square metres total, including the garage, that's going to mean an average cost to build of $402,000 to $778,000. And that's smaller than the state's average cost to average size property. And if you look at a larger 4-bedroom of 260 square metres, they're averaging out at the moment, that would be costing between $598,000 and $1.15 million. So basically $600K to build a decent sized family home and $400K on a medium sort of size block minimum. Now, looking at the typical costs for land now, so you don't just pay for your build and you've got to put it on some land, obviously, don't you? So for blocks between medium-sized blocks, as they call them, between 300 and 450 square metres, the current median land price is $339,000. That's gone up from $265,000 18 months ago when I last recorded this episode. So on that sort of size block, doing a medium sort of size house of a 3-bedroom house with 2 living areas, you'd expect with that. You can add median land price that I just mentioned of $339,000 with the median build price that I just mentioned, a minimum of $402,000, and it's going to give $741,000. So $741,000. That does seem very expensive still when you're not even ending up with typical 4-bedroom sort of size house. Now, for blocks that are greater than 450 square metres, the median land price is currently $480,000. So it's gone up from $410,000 18 months ago. And when we add that $480K for the land to the minimum sort of cost to build a larger 4x2 at $598,000, that equals $1,078,000. So how do those two figures compare to the median house price in Perth? Well, the median house price in Perth is currently $720,000. You don't get very much for that. Look, it's a lot closer to the cost to build a 3-bedroom house if you lower your expectations. But when I compared the median house price to the typical cost to build a larger house 18 months ago, that price, the median house price was just $555,000. So the median house price has increased a fair amount, but it's still, approximately 30% lower to buy a median house price compared to a larger 4x2 building it new. So over the last 18 months, it's clear that both the price of land has substantially increased and the price of building has continued to substantially increase. So it's a double-edged problem where we need to solve land supply and cut the red tape and free up the development of land to be more at a better price point, not have so much pressure on land prices increasing in order to deliver an affordable house. And it's also the cost to then build and the time to build and getting enough labour to do that. So neither of those problems has been solved. That's why we're seeing the substantial increases in the cost of the land and in the cost of the build. We're seeing a higher population growth. We're seeing some of our commencements heading in the right direction for construction, but we're not seeing the monthly sales head in the right direction yet to the kind of levels that we need to deliver per supply. So in my mind, this all adds up to still being a big problem for affordability. Those that have existing properties, this is really going to underpin the established house prices only increasing further in Perth, putting pressure on that to keep happening, and no relief is in sight as far as demand and supply goes, really looking through to how the building industry is stacking up at the moment. So hopefully that's been insightful. I've enjoyed refreshing myself on the numbers, seeing where things are at too. I thought things might have changed a bit more in the direction for the positive towards affordability, but still not seeing it. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, like and share it with friends. and post a review on Spotify or iTunes. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. And if you have any suggested topics, reach out to me, and I'm always happy to deep dive on different things. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you soon. Bye. Just a reminder that the information discussed in this podcast is general in nature. As we don't know your specific situation, you should always seek professional advice before taking any action. For free market reports on your suburbs of interest and other helpful resources to grow your wealth, make sure you join my property investor update at investorsedge.com.au/join. And finally, make sure you're a member of our Perth Property Investment Facebook group to be part of the conversation with other like-minded investors, get help to your questions, and get a feel for what's going on out there in the market. I'll see you in the group.